Yogavasishtam.
Book 2. Mumukshu Kanda. Or The Means of Final Liberation. Chapter 5. Necessity of Activity. 1. Vasishta said, it is the will, or inclination, that is the prime instrument of all actions done, even according to the rules of law and sastras, as it is the reflection of light that gives various hues to things. 2. Whoever wishes to do anything desirable, to him by unlawful acts, it becomes as fruitless as the endeavors of a madman. 3. As you try so, you get both of good and evil. And fortune and exertion are the joint causes of acts, according to fatalists. 4. Human exertions are either lawful or unlawful. The former, leading to success, and the latter, to dangerous consequences. 5. Fortune and exertions contend with each other, like two rams of unequal strength, wherein the mighty oar overcomes the other. 6. Therefore, should man apply himself diligently to his duties, and employ his skill and promptness after them, in such a way as his today may overcome the morrow, that is, do the works of tomorrow today. 7. When two unequal forces, of two persons, contend with one another, like two rams, the stronger force, whether of this or that man, overcomes the other. 8. When one incurs a failure or danger, even by his lawful exertions, he should know it to be the result of his misapplied exertions. 9. 1. By his utmost exertion, in the right way, as by the gnashing of his teeth, and the like, can overcome his misfortune, and so does. His bad luck sometimes baffle his exertions. 10. When one finds himself to be led astray by the demerit of his acts, of a former state of existence, he must attempt to subdue the same, by greater energy of his present state. 11. So far, should one diligently endeavor to exercise his exertions, as he may be able to beat down the evils resulting from his bad fortune, or predestination. 12. The evils of bad fortune are undoubtedly removed by the meritorious acts of the present life, as the bad consequence of an act of yesterday is averted by its remedy of today. 13. Having trampled over an unfavorable fortune, by one's reliance on his continuous energy, he must attempt to secure to himself every good for his well-being in his present life. 14. Know that tranquility is not to be found by the effortlessness of dull, ass-like men. It is the lawful energy of men which is said to secure his welfare in both worlds. 15. And that one should make his way out of the pit of this world by force of his energy and diligence, just as the lion breaks out from his cage. 16. One must ponder in himself, every day, that his body is subject to corruption, his beastly acts must be kept backward, and man-like acts put forward. 17. It is our good exertions that are attended by good results, as the bad ones are followed by bad consequences. Chance is a mere meaningless word. 18. Do not make your bloom of youth useless as ashes by sitting idly at home and enjoying the bliss of the harem, like a worm in the saw. 19. He who has no reliance on present objects, but depends upon suppositions of the past, is as a man fleeing for fear of his own hands, supposing them as snakes. 20. It is a pleasure to men of perverted understandings to think themselves guided by their fortunes. Prosperity flies away far off from such men who depend on their fortunes. 21. Therefore, Let a man diligently apply himself, first to the cultivation of his reason, and then investigate into the works of abstruse spiritual knowledge. 22. Those who do not set their hearts to acts according to the dictates of the Sastras, but exert themselves otherwise to gain their ends, are accursed as madmen for their vain attempts. 23. Thinking there is no end of exertions, one declines to take the pains after anything, and says that no pains can bring out a gem from a stone, or oil from water. 24. Know that there is a limitation both of human lot and exertion, as of all other things, as a pot or picture having a limited capacity and length. 25. And that it is by means of good conduct derived from best precepts and the company of the good, that one succeeds to his object, and a disposition that breaks loose of these bounds is sure to fall to the contrary, extreme of ruin. 26. Again, any man who conducts himself in the right course of action never fails in his attempts at any time. 27. Some, among the best of men, who had been reduced to misery by their poverty and helplessness, have again risen to the eminence of Indra by exertion of their manhood. 28. By learning the Sastras well from boyhood, by keeping company with the good, and by possession of good qualities, as also by diligent application, a man is sure to gain his object. 29. It has been seen, known, heard, and experienced by us, that acts are rewarded with success. And they are dull-headed, to think of obtaining it, from fortune or by chance. 30. Had there not been the folly of idleness, in this world, what man would fail, either to be rich or learned? It is by reason of idleness, that this earth is filled to its utmost limit of the sea, with indigent and beastly men. 31. Let a man, after passing his childhood, and getting rid of its false and idle playfulness, and when he has attained the age of youthful vigor, apply himself diligently to the company of wise men, and to the cultivation of his understanding, by a knowledge of the Sastras and their meanings, and by scanning well his own faults and qualities. 32. Valmiki said. After the sage had said these sayings, the day passed away, and the sages went to bathe after taking leave of the assembly, where they joined again, with the rising beams of the sun dispelling the gloom of night. Chapter 6. Refutation of Fatalism. 1. Vasishta resumed saying, now fate being no other than the result of our actions, of the former state of our existence, it is possible to leave it at a distance, and to extricate one's self from its fetters, by betaking himself to good company and study of moral sastras. 2. Whatever one attempts to do, he readily meets with its reward. This being the effect of exertion. Fate is no other but the same thing. 3. Men laboring hard are heard to exclaim, "Oh, how painful it is!" So men suffering under fate cry out, "Oh, hard is fate!" So the one is as bad as the other. 4. Thus, then, fate being no other than a name for our past actions, it is as easily overcome by present acts as a boy is subdued by an adult youth. 5. As some bad conduct of yesterday is corrected by proper behavior of the present day, so the anterior fate is removed by posterior acts. 6. Those carnal-minded libertines, who do not try the means of reforming their fate, but depend upon the favor of fortune, are perverted in their nature, and marked for misery. 7. Thus, if the acts of manliness are capable of forfending one's misfortunes, it must be acknowledged that manliness which destroys the other, is the mightier of the two. 8. As of two fruits, growing on the same forestalk, the one is found to be empty within, and the other full of juice, so the fruit of fate is rendered abortive by that of manliness. 9. Seeing the decay of the best things in the world, we must own the predominant power of the cause of this decay. 10. Like two rams, our fate and exertions are fighting with one another, wherein the victory is always on the side of the stronger. 11. In the case of the royal elephant, taking up a beggar boy for being made the ruler of a country, its cause is to be attributed more to the vote of the countrymen and citizens, than to chance or fortune. 12. As a man takes his food and grinds it under his teeth, so is one, depending on fate, crushed by the stronger party, relying on his exertions. 13. Inferior servants are thus employed like clods of earth, by their more active masters, in any work they like. 14. Silly and impotent men, seeing the strong thriving by their exertions, whether apparent or unseen, are apt to attribute it to their good fortune, instead of their diligence. 15. The strong efforts of men truly constitute their presiding fortune, and these two are viewed alike by the wise. 16. In the case of the aforesaid beggar boy's installation, to the ruling and protection of the people of a realm, the unanimous concurrence of the law and ministers, of the elephant and citizens, is to be taken as the chief cause. 17. Should the beggar boy be ever elected for a ruler by the royal elephant itself, without the assent of men, in that case, it is to be attributed to the boy's good fortune only, because there was no sensible exertion on his side. 18. Present acts destroy those of the past life, and so also the vice versa comes to pass. But the exertions of a man are undoubtedly successful at all times. 19. Of these two powers, that of the present state is manifestly superior to the other. Hence, it is as possible to overcome the past by the present, as to lick a boy by an adult. 20. As a hail shower lays waste the cultivation of a whole year, so also doth the predominant fate sometimes overpower the attempts of this life. 21. However, it does not behoove us to be sorry at the loss of our long-earned treasure, as of the harvest, for what avails our sorrow at what is beyond our control? 22. If I should be sorry for what I have not the power to prevent, I must then weep all the days of my life, because I am not to be spared by death. 23. All our acts are subject to their proper time and place, and to the modes of their operation and combination according to the course of nature. Hence, it is that the more diligent are the most successful, everywhere. 24. We ought therefore to rely in our exertions and clearness of understanding by the help of sastras and association with the wise, for fording over the ocean of this world. 25. Actions of the past and present lives are the two fruit trees growing in the garden of humanity, of which the one, that is cultivated best, thrives and fructifies the most. 26. He, who is unable to overcome his false fate by his best exertions, in this life, is no better than an ignorant beast that has no power over its pain or pleasure. 27. He who thinks of going to heaven or hell, by the will of the Maker, is also a slave to destiny, and no better than a beast. 28. The man of a noble mind, and one employed in acts of goodness, breaks off from the errors of the world, as a lion from its cage. 29. Those who vainly imagine themselves to be led about by some supernatural power, and so slight their necessary duties, are to be shunned at a distance, as the mean and base. 30. There are thousands of acts that are attended with gain or loss to their doers. But it is the duty of man, to do what is right whether they are pleasant or painful. 31. He who does not transgress the bounds of law, nor forsake the duties of his race, is attended by every blessing, abundant as the pearls in the sea. 32. Devoted diligence, in acts leading to one's object, is termed to be his manliness by the wise. And that, being guided by the sastra, leads to his success. 33. An act accompanied by exertion, is of itself the accomplisher of one's object, and the company of the wise, and study of good books, serve to raise a man by brightening his understanding. 34. The infinite happiness or a tranquil spirit, is known as the summum bonum by the wise. And those good works are fit for study which lead to that state. 35. The acts of our former lives constitute what we call our destiny, and they return to us from the region of the gods, for our good in both worlds. 36. We blame the fate, which is a creation of the fancy of the ignorant, who by their adoration of the same, come to meet their destruction. 37. One benefits himself, always by his activity in both worlds, as his good acts of today gives a grace to those of yesterday. 38. Whoso therefore applies himself with diligence to his acts, reaps their fruits, like that of an amalaki in his palm, which though it is within his grasp, yet it could not be obtained without the cost of some labor. 39. It is the ignorant only that depart from the beaten path, and fall into the error of fatalism. Therefore give up that false faith in an unreal fate, which is a mere creation of the imagination, and devoid of any cause or effect. And apply to your manly exertions. 40. The fruit of following the sastras, and observing the good customs and local usages, is long known to be wholesome, as exciting the heart and the exertion of the limbs to action. This is what they called manly activity. 41. All wise men, after discussion of the subject of fate and acts, have applied themselves to activity by utter rejection of fatality, and accomplished their ends by attendance on the good and wise. 42. Knowing the efficacy of activity, every one should betake himself to his personal exertions, and attain to his highest perfection, by attending to good sastras and the wise counsels of learned men. 43. And knowing the bondage of our births to be full of pain, let people strive for the exercise of their activities, and obtain the true and sweet blessing of tranquility, by their attendance on the wise. Chapter 7. On the necessity of activity. 1. Having obtained a body, free from disease, and a mind, free from trouble, one should try to know the knowable, to prevent his further birth in this world. 2. Whoso wishes to avert his destiny by means of his activity, obtains the acme of his wishes, both in this world as well as in the next. 3. But whoever is averse to assiduity and relies in his luck, he is an enemy to his own soul, and sacrifices all his virtues, riches and hopes, to his idleness. 4. It is the exercise of our sensuous and mental faculties, as also of the members of the body, which are the different modes of our exertions, that leads us to success. 5. Our perceptions are the cause of our mental activity, and this actuates the body to action, whereby we obtain the fruits of our desire. 6. In whatever case there is some act enjoined in the sastra, it points us to our exertions and never to destiny. Even children are well aware of this. 7. It was by the exercise of their exertions, that Devaspati, Jupiter, became the lord of gods, and Sukra obtained the preceptorship of demons. 8. There have been many weak, poor and miserable men, who have by means of their manly exertions, become equal to Indra himself. 9. So also, there have been many great men on earth, who after enjoyment, of a great many extraordinary things and luxuries here, have become guests in hell for want of the exercise of their manly virtues. 10. In this manner, have all beings evaded the effects of their various states of want, and opulence by means of their own exertions, in the right way. 11. There are threefold benefits, derived from the study of books, from lectures of a preceptor, and from one's own industry, all of which are attendant on our exertions and not destiny. 12. This is the long and short of all the sastras, that diligence preserves our minds from all evils, by employing them to whatever is good and right. 13. To apply with diligence, to whatever is excellent, not low or mean and not liable to loss or decay, is the precept of parents and preceptors, to their sons and pupils. 14. I get the immediate fruit of my labor, in proportion to my exertion. Hence I say, I enjoy the fruit of my labor, and not of fortune. 15. Activity gives us success, and it is this that elevates the intelligent. But men of little understandings, rely only in fortune in their miserable state. 16. We have ocular evidence, of the efficacy, of activity every day, in the instances of men, traveling in distant countries, for the sake of gain. 17. He that eats becomes satiate and not who starves. So he who walks is said to precede and not one who rests. And in like manner, whoso speaks, is called a speaker and not the silent man. Thus action makes the man. 18. Wise men, escape from great difficulties, by means of their exertions. But not so the mistaken fatalist, by his fruitless inertness. 19. Whoso acts in any manner, gets his reward accordingly. But the restive man, has nothing to expect anywhere. 20. By well-directed industry, a man reaps the best reward, as he meets with its reverse, by his misapplied labor. Think upon this, O Rama, and do as you like. 21. The reward of industry, which a man meets with sooner or later, at any time or place, the same is said, by the wise to be his fortune. 22. No one can see his fortune, nor has anybody ever seen the same, nor is there such a thing to be found in any world. It is but the merit of our acts here, which they place in the other world. 23. A man is born on earth, to grow up and decay in his time, and no destiny is seen therein, in the same way as his childhood, youth and old age. 24. One's application to diligence and action, for the attainment of an object, is known by the term exertion, by the wise, whereby all things are accomplished, and which is no destiny. 25. One's going from one place to another, his holding a thing in the hand, and the movement of his limbs, are all the acts of his exertion and not his destiny. 26. There is another kind of propensity to acts, productive of evil. This sort of action is likened to the attempt of a madman, which yields no good. 27. Men of acute understandings raise themselves to elevation, by their association with the virtuous, study of good works, and active employment to duties tending to their own good. 28. The boundless joy, arising from equanimity, is said to constitute one's summum bonum, upon earth. This blessing also results from a man's diligent application, to the sastras, and not from his destiny. 29. It is the understanding that leads to the knowledge of the sastras, as it is the other that tends to our right understanding of things. Just so does the lotus serve to beautify a lake, as it is the lake which lends its grace to the lotus. That is, they serve mutually to assist each other. 30. It is also, by virtue of one's deep study and good company in youth, that a man attains his desirable objects afterwards, which are the results of his exertions. 31. It was by means of his activity that Vishnu had conquered the demons, and established the order of the world. It was by this that he created the worlds, none of which could be the work of fate. 32. Now, O Lord of Raghu's race, employ your efforts to the exertion of your manly activities, in such a way in this earth, that you may live free from fear of being bitten by the serpentine people in this arbor of the world, that is, crush the malice of your enemies. Chapter 8. Invalidation of Destiny. 1. Vasishta continued saying that, what does destiny mean, which has no form, no act, no motion nor might, but is a false notion rooted in their minds of the ignorant? 2. It is a word that has come into vogue from the idea of the future attribution of one's past actions, or attributive justice, and the like, which is designated destiny. 3. From this, the ignorant are led to believe that there is a thing as destiny, the inscrutability of which has led them to the fallacy, as that of the supposition of a snake in a rope. 4. As a past misdeed of yesterday is rectified by a good action of the following day, let this day therefore supersede the past, and employ yourself today to action. 5. The perverted understanding, that believes in a destiny grounded on its erroneous conception, may well enter into the fire, from his conviction that it will not burn him unless it is so destined. 6. If destiny is the sole cause of everything, why then should a man betake himself to his actions of bathing and making his offerings, sitting and walking, all of which may be done by his destiny? 7. What then is the necessity of one's advising another to do a thing when destiny is the director of all? Let then all be silent and say nothing to nobody. 8. There is no one to be seen on earth that is motionless except the bodies of the dead. And if it is action that produces anything, it is useless to believe in destiny. 9. Nor is there any cooperative power of the invisible destiny perceptible in the actions of men, whence it is but a meaningless word. 10. Two things, as the implements and members of the body, being joined together, have each their several action. As that of the pen and razor and the hand in writing and shaving. But the hand being wanted, nothing can be done by destiny, with its having those tools. 11. There is no such clear idea of a destiny like those of the mind and intellect, even in their illiterate cowherd or in their learned pandit. Hence, it is a mere non-entity. 12. If the concept of destiny be other than that of an agent, it must mean something else. Or if it be the same thing with the agent, why then give it a different name, as destiny? If it be proved to be an imaginary term, then, why not imagine your exertion to be agent of your action? 13. The immaterial destiny like vacuity has no connection with the material body. If it had a form or figure, it would be visible to some one or other. Hence, destiny is a nullity. 14. If destiny is the mainspring of the movements of all beings in the three worlds, then let all creatures rest at ease, with the assurance that destiny will perform their parts. 15. The belief that we are guided by destiny, and do as we are led to do, is a deception and an allegation of self-excuse. In fact, there is no such thing as destiny. 16. It is the fool that fancies to himself or destiny and relies on it to his own disadvantage. While the intelligent raise themselves to better states, by means of their exertion. 17. Say, who is there among the mighty and brave, the intelligent and learned, that looks or waits upon destiny, in this world? 18. Destiny may be said good, if it can have the power of saving a man from being beheaded, whom fortune-tellers had pronounced by their calculation to be long-lived. 19. Again, O Raghava, should one who is foretold by his fortune-teller to become a learned man, attain his learning without being taught in it, then may we believe fortune to be true. 20. Mark, O Rama, how the sage Viswamitra has cast away his destiny at a distance, and attained to Brahmahood by his own exertions. 21. Look at us, and others, who have become sages, that it was by our industry we became aeronauts, or wanderers in the ethereal regions. 22. Remember, O Rama, how the chiefs of the Danava race have established their empires on earth by their prowess, and by discarding their destinies altogether. 23. Look again, how the chiefs of gods have wrested the extensive earth from those demons by their valorous deeds of slaying and harassing them in battle. 24. See Rama, how they make handsome wicker vessels, of bamboo work, for the holding of water, by their own industry, and without the aid of any destiny to the completion of the same. 25. In all our works of giving and receiving, walking, resting and the like, we see no causality of destiny in their completion, as we see of medicines, in healing diseases. 26. Therefore, O Rama, give up this destiny, of your mistaken fancy, which is in reality devoid of its cause or effect, and is a false and ideal nullity. And betake yourself to your best exertions,